little girl's heart-wrenching plea to Marine and K9 reveals shocking secrets hidden in her bag. Lily's heart raced as she stared at the worn-out bag at her feet, its existence a silent testament to dreams suffocated by the weight of family expectations. As her mother worked tirelessly at 2 jobs, Lily often filled her time with chores and errands that felt too heavy for a 10-year-old. The thought of having her dreams crushed under the burden of responsibility made her stomach churn. Would she ever escape the cycle? On a particularly gray afternoon, she was tasked with picking up groceries. The rain drizzled softly, blurring the world around her. Yet a flicker of hope ignited inside her as she caught sight of Tom, the rugged Marine veteran, and his sturdy companion, Max. They stood together under the sprawling branches of an old oak, quietly observing the world with a somber resilience. Compelled by an urge she didn't fully understand, she approached them. "Excuse me," she squeaked, her voice barely audible over the whispering winds. "Can I talk to you?" Tom looked down, his face etched with weariness, but nodded. "Sure, kiddo. What's on your mind?" Lily hesitated. I see you a lot. You and Max. My mom works a lot, and I feel like I have to be an adult, but I'm not ready. I just want someone to tell me it's okay not to be strong all the time." The words poured out like water from a dam, raw and exposed. Tom's eyes softened. "It's all right to feel that way. We all struggle in our own ways." She felt relief wash over her, but it was just the beginning. When their conversation shifted to memories, curiosity bloomed inside her. Lily noticed a worn bag slumped against Tom's feet, shadows cradling it as if hiding secrets. "What's in there?" she asked, unable to contain the curiosity gnawing at her. Tom stiffened, a flicker of anxiety crossing his face. "Just some old stuff. Nothing important." But Lily was drawn to it, a gravitational pull. Her heartbeat quickened, sensing a storm brewing beneath the surface. "Can I see?" Against his better judgment, Tom unzipped the bag, revealing snapshots, medals, and an old letter. Something within her sparked at the sight. Her fingers ached to learn the stories hidden in these artifacts, yet a voice in her mind warned her the truth could be jagged. As she perused the items, she stumbled upon a letter with familiar handwriting, her heart pounding as she realized the connection. Tom had fought alongside her grandfather. The reality struck like a blow. Her grandfather had fought for their freedoms, while Mama struggled to keep their home afloat. "Tom," she stammered, "this is my grandfather's writing." A weight fell between them, heavy, suffocating. They faced unresolved grief and memories that shaped their identities. What would happen if Tom chose to forget the past? What if she lost this connection to someone she had never known but ached to understand? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The silence lingered, thick with their unspoken struggles, torn between the deep-rooted duty to remember and the seductive promise of moving on. Tom's shoulders slumped. Could he wrestle with the memories of the man who had been part of his life? Was he prepared for the conflicts that awaited? Lily clutched the bag, her small fingers shaking as she turned to him, desperate for assurance. What if he buried the truth beneath layers of silence? Anxiety coiled in her chest, tightening like a vice. Would the bond they forged unravel in the face of past demons, or would they find strength together? As the rain thickened with her emotions, they stood poised on the precipice of discovery. The choice before them shimmered dimly, a future replete with horror and hope. What lay ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. Their fragile alliance teetered on the brink of revelation, waiting to be ignited. Tom drew in a sharp breath, uncertainty swirling within him like a tempest. He had spent years stifling the memories of his past, burying them under the rubble of day-to-day life. But now, standing there with Lily, the weight of those memories threatened to consume him. He glanced at her innocent face, mirroring the unprocessed pain he had seen reflected in his own during sleepless nights. "Your grandfather was a brave man," Tom finally said, his voice gravelly yet tender. "It's not easy for someone like me to talk about what happened back then. But if you want to know, I think you deserve to learn about him." Lily's eyes widened, shimmering with both hope and fear. She had only known her grandfather through fragmented stories, shared during quiet evenings when the world outside felt too threatening. But now, she had a tangible connection, an opportunity to piece together the fragmented memories that had haunted her family. "Can you tell me about him?" she asked, the tremor in her voice revealing her vulnerability. Tom hesitated, wrestling with the murky waters of his memories. What if his recollections opened old wounds? What if sharing them burdens Lily? Yet the spark of her curiosity ignited something deep within him, a flicker of purpose after years of feeling lost. He was more than a veteran. He could become a guide. "All right," he replied, settling down against the oak tree. "But this isn't going to be easy." As he began recounting tales of valor and brotherhood, Lily hung on every word. She visualized her grandfather as he had been, a young man with unyielding resolve, laughing with comrades and facing danger head-on. Each story unveiled layers of her heritage, forging a bridge between her family's struggles and the sacrifices made for their freedom. Yet, with each revelation, a pang of sorrow crackled through her. Her grandfather's choices had come with a price. The past was embedded with heartache, loss, and unforeseen consequences that had rippled into her present. The question lurked in the corners of her mind. How had these sacrifices reshaped their family dynamics? The rain softened, and with it the atmosphere around them lightened. For the first time, Lily felt an inkling of strength, a sense of being anchored to something greater than herself. Talking to Tom transformed her desperation into determination. Maybe she could write her own narratives, ones that blossomed even in the face of overwhelming odds. "I want to be strong like him," she declared, her voice firm, conviction flickering in her gaze. "I don't want my dreams to vanish like smoke." Tom nodded appreciatively, a faint smile creeping onto his lips. For a brief moment, he felt a rekindling of his own purpose, a chance to contribute positively, perhaps teaching her lessons he had had to learn the hard way. "Strength isn't merely about toughness," he replied, reflecting thoughtfully. "It's about facing the truth even when it's ugly. You've already done that by talking to me." The afternoon sun broke through the clouds, its light spilling around them like gold. But beneath the surface of shared insight, deeper questions lingered unspoken. As Lily absorbed Tom's words, a new awareness in her heart ignited. What if courageous differences could point toward a different future? But a shadow flickered into her thoughts. Was she truly ready to confront not only her family's history, but also her potential future? The smile on her face masked the uncertainty brewing in her mind. With each word, the distance to resolution narrowed, yet another journey had just begun, one that required unearthing not only hidden family legacies, but also her own ambitions. The decision to strive for those dreams loomed closer, but what would she have to sacrifice in exchange for them? The moment of truth was hovering just out of reach as Lily pondered the gulf between fear and determination. She could feel the weight of her resolve pressing against the doors of possibility. What awaited her on the other side? Lily sat quietly under the oak tree, her thoughts swirling like the leaves caught in the gentle breeze. Each word Tom had shared resonated within her like the tolling of a bell, reverberating with significance. It wasn't just about her grandfather's bravery. It was about what that bravery meant for her own life. As the sun dipped lower, casting a warm golden hue over everything, a realization began to form. A realization that she had never allowed herself to fully grasp before. With each story, Tom had peeled back layers of her ancestry, revealing battles fought not just on distant fields, but in the hearts of her family. She was not merely a bystander in this narrative. She had an active role to play. But what did that entail? She needed to confront the dormant potential inside her, the ambition she had barely acknowledged until now. Determined to explore this newfound perspective, Lily took a deep breath and decided to shift the dialogue. "Tom, how did you become so strong? Dealing with the past, it's not easy, but you seem to have found a way to cope." Her voice carried an earnest inquisition. For someone who had faced the brutality of war and loss, he appeared remarkably composed. Tom's expression turned contemplative, as though he were pulling on threads of memory. "It hasn't come without its battles," he finally admitted, his gaze fixed on a point far beyond the horizon. "Do you know what it's like to confront your demons face to face?" Lily shook her head. "No, but I think I want to." "But I—" A silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of mutual understanding. Something heavy seemed to shift in Tom. He appeared to contemplate the burdens he had carried, the sacrifices he had made. Facing them may mean standing in the storm, letting it rage against you rather than running away. You have to embrace your truth to be free of it. Tom's words struck a chord within her. The notion that her strength could be forged in the fires of her family's history inspired a flicker of courage. But before she could articulate this insight, her hands instinctively grasped the backpack by her side. Within it lay remnants of her life, a journal filled with dreams, sketches of adventures she had yet to embark upon, and snippets of poetry that reflected her soul. "What if I let go of what I think I should do and start pursuing what I truly want?" she mused aloud, the words tasting foreign, yet exhilarating. Tom turned to her, an eyebrow raised, intrigued. "And what is that?" "Writing. I want to tell stories. Stories of bravery, love, and loss, much like what you've shared today. But there's a fear deep within me, a question of whether my voice even matters." "Your voice matters immensely, Lily. It forms the threads that connect the past, present, and future," he replied, a warmth infusing his tone. "Let that be your strength. Your stories could illuminate the shadows that dance on the walls of uncertainty." Lily felt an electrifying surge of motivation, not just a vague passing interest, but a resolve that coalesced into a plan. The desire to nurture her dreams through writing suddenly felt tangible, almost within her grasp. Yet, beneath this clarity, a lingering question scratched away at her resolve. What if she failed? As the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows against the backdrop of the trees, she recognized the crossroads before her. The clarity she felt now contrasted sharply with the uncertainty that had haunted her for so long. Could she truly confront her fears? Lily looked back at Tom, the realization dawning on her. This moment was just the beginning. She needed to push beyond the limits of her comfort. And so, with renewed determination, she ventured, "Can you help me find my voice, Tom? Can we work together?" Tom's smile widened, even as a flicker of anticipation danced in his eyes. "I'd be honored. But first, you must confront the doubts waiting to be dealt with. What's hidden in your backpack isn't just memories. It holds the key to your next steps." Lily's heart raced. Could she really unlock these secrets? What truths awaited her there, and would they lead her closer to her dreams, or further in the abyss of uncertainty? The stakes were rising. A fresh chapter had begun, yet it was marked with more than just ambition. It hinted at the conflict brewing beneath her own resolve. What would this journey demand of her? Trust, vulnerability, courage. She could almost feel the weight of her old self, lingering like a stubborn ghost. The question now mocked her. Would she face it down, or would she let it shadow her dreams? Lily sat in stillness, the weight of her backpack pressing against her back like a long-suppressed secret begging for release. It felt as if the very contents of that bag were echoing Tom's words, the keys to her future tangled with the shadows of her past. What if this journey involved unearthing more than just her passion for writing? What if it demanded she confront everything she had buried deep within herself? Tom broke the silence first, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "It's time to open that bag, Lily. What do you think you'll find?" Her mind fluttered, racing with images of words yet unwritten and emotions yet unexpressed. But the deeper she probed, the more intricate the web of self-doubt became. She clenched her fists, feeling the fabric of the backpack beneath her fingers. "I'm not sure I can. What if I find things I don't want to face?" "That's precisely what makes it essential," Tom replied, his voice a calming embrace against the storm of her fears. "Courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about recognizing it and moving forward despite it." Let's discover what those hidden treasures can teach you. Lily's breaths grew heavier, mixing anxiety with anticipation. She hesitated, weighing the importance of what lay inside against the fear of what it might reveal. The backpack sat before her like an enigma, a vessel that had carried remnants of her essence. What stories were woven into the pages of her journal? What sketches spoke of dreams she'd tucked away? With a newfound resolve, she unzipped the backpack, the sound of the zipper breaking the ambient hush around them. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out the journal first. It felt familiar yet foreign, each page an extension of her soul that had gathered dust in the corners of her mind. "What's there?" Tom asked, leaning in, his curiosity palpable. "I've written about moments that struck me, people I admire, dreams I fear pursuing, everything that has shaped my perception." She opened the journal, the handwritten words reflecting her struggles and fragments of triumphs, like stars scattered across a dark night. "Read one," Tom encouraged gently, placing a hand on her shoulder, a grounding force amidst her swirling thoughts. Lily glanced at a passage about a childhood memory, a moment of intense creativity when she'd placed her world into vibrant sketches, her heart freely dancing with happiness. Paralyzed with both pride and shame, she read aloud about a time when every word flowed effortlessly, capturing the joy she had long since abandoned. "I felt alive back then, like I could conquer anything." As she spoke, a realization struck her with clarity. The weight of the fear she had allowed to stifle her passion was a shadow she created. Could she recapture that feeling? Her voice, rising and falling with uncertainty, began to find its strength. "You should never have stopped," Tom interjected, deep empathy in his gaze. "That girl you were still exists within you. It's time to resurrect her." The encouragement sparked something fierce and restless within, a flicker of her childhood's audacity. But could that translate into the adult world she inhabited? The stakes were higher now, and as her pulse quickened, the question roared in her mind. Could she take that leap, right not just from her experiences but from those long-held dreams beneath her self-imposed barriers? Lily took a handful of sketches next, each representing uncharted dreams, the possibility of distant travels and the people she wished to meet. "Wow, these are beautiful," Tom praised, his genuine admiration igniting a flame of pride in her chest. "You have such a gift. Don't bury it." "What if no one cares about my stories?" The doubt slipped from her lips unbidden, a whisper of the internal struggles that had cast shadows over her days. "Then you tell them for yourself. Your truth deserves to be expressed, regardless of recognition." Those words reverberated, mingling with her memories. She pictured herself standing at countless crossroads, where fear held her back. Each time she had stepped back, but today felt different. Today she had an ally, a guide to help her confront the demons she had avoided. "I want to take this seriously," she voiced. "Can this be my chance? To rebuild? To confront every ounce of hesitation and doubt?" Tom nodded, a proud smile spreading. "Absolutely. But with every step forward, there might be obstacles you didn't foresee. The journey isn't just about creating, it's about embracing the entire process, even the painful parts." "Maybe that's the journey of writing," she mused, feeling the walls of her uncertainty crumbling, cracked by the weight of truth. "It's more than just stories. It's revealing the raw parts of myself." "Exactly," Tom said, his eyes twinkling with encouragement. "You will find your voice and it will be powerful. Now are you ready to write?" As the sun sank low, the world became a canvas shaded in golden hues, a metaphor for her emerging clarity. But as she contemplated that first blank page, doubt bubbled anew. What if the words refused to come, or worse, what if they did but revealed too much? Taking a deep breath, she confronted this new wave of fear that threatened to overwhelm her once more. Would she lean into this moment, or would it slip away like the last light of day? Determination anchored her spirit. She had embarked on a path of uncovering herself, but the next step felt monumental. Would she dare to write her truth, risking all that came with it? Lily stared at the blank page, her fingers hovering just above the surface, every heartbeat resonating louder in her ears. It was a moment of truth. the kind that could shift the entire axis of her life. The fear that had plagued her like a shadow now loomed larger than ever. What if she began to write but couldn't stop the flood of emotions that had been bottled for far too long? What if the words unleashed a storm that felt insurmountable? Tom watched patiently, sensing her internal turmoil. You don't have to write a masterpiece right now. Just start with one word, one thought. No pressure, just let it flow. His encouragement flickered like a candle in a gusty wind. Was it really that simple? Writing had been the outlet she loved and hated, a comfort and a curse. She exhaled slowly, reminding herself of the powerful message she had just read in her journal. Every word mattered, because it carried a piece of herself. Resolutely, she pressed her pen onto the page, creating an imperfect swirl. Then another. Words poured out haltingly, as though they were waking from a long sleep. It's not easy, she muttered, her inner critic rising like a sentinel. What if it's not good enough? You're not writing for anyone but yourself, Lily, Tom reassured her, his voice woven with certainty. Every person's story has merit. Yours is no exception. With this mantra pulsing like a drumbeat in her brain, she let go of perfectionism and began writing about her fears. She wrote about the suffocating grip of doubt, the deep-seated feeling of inadequacy that had seeped into her identity over the years. Each line vacated a space in her heart, allowing air to rush in. As she wrote, she simultaneously confronted her own vulnerability. Did vulnerability truly equal strength? Was the act of exposing her innermost thoughts to herself liberating or terrifying? The sensory world around her faded, and an intimate conversation emerged between her and the ink-stained page, a conversation she hadn't realized she needed to have. Time slipped away like grains of sand as her thoughts took on tangible shapes. Memories flickered in her mind, some delightful, others difficult. With every keystroke, she processed fractured pieces of her past, the childhood dreams eclipsed by the weight of expectation, the friendships redefined through the lens of doubt, and the unrelenting pressure to conform to a vision of adulthood that felt foreign. When she finally placed the pen down, gasping for air as if she had been submerged beneath the ocean's depths for too long, her heart raced. The page wasn't filled with glorious prose, but fragments of truth that felt raw and real. She had confronted a part of herself she had tried to bury. Every word on that page echoed her journey towards reclaiming her narrative. That was beautiful, Tom said softly, pride illuminating his gaze. You faced your fears right there on that page. What did you discover? Lily hesitated, apprehensive about her answer. That it's all still within me, just dormant. But I risked nothing by not writing. I need to unearth the worth behind my voice. And that's only the beginning, he noted, gently nudging her awareness outward. Beyond recognizing your voice lies the need for clarity. What do you want to say moving forward? What stories await you? For the first time, Lily felt a blend of fear and excitement pulse through her body. With every moment of catharsis came the renewed ache for honesty. Writing was the key, not just to reclamation, but to exploration. What did this mean for her plans to publish? What if the world rejected the truths she was now wrestling with? I need to be brave, she whispered, half in disbelief, half in hope. Bravery can sometimes mean sharing what feels most vulnerable, Tom reminded her, his confidence a soothing balm. Remember, with growth comes discomfort. You're ready to navigate this path. Could she carry this momentum forward? Would she find strength in embracing her truth, even when it felt uncomfortable? That night, exhilarated yet anxious, she opened her notebook again. The sun had set, but new ideas began to rise. This time, they weren't just reverberating echoes from her past. They were promising whispers of a future in the making. What if by facing her hidden fears, she opened doors she had never imagined? What lay on the horizon? In the soft glow of the lamp, as the shadows stretched and morphed, she began to pen a list of stories she had silenced, tales of heartbreak and triumph that wrote her into existence. Each narrative unveiled another facet of herself she was ready to share, to delve into deeper than she ever had before. But as she scribbled furiously, doubt crept back. What if she wasn't truly ready? What was at stake if she dared to speak her truth? As the last stroke of her pen fell, silence wrapped around her, thickening with the intensity of her internal conflict. Lily wrestled with a question that burned in her mind. Could she bear the weight of both her story and the world's judgment? As she closed the notebook, a sense of urgency enveloped her. The answers felt tantalizingly close, yet dauntingly out of reach. The real challenge loomed. Would she be bold enough to embrace every part of her journey, regardless of where it might lead? Lily's breath quickened as she peered at the invitation she had nestled behind her notebook for too long. The envelope bore the distinct logo of a local publishing house, promising a workshop that offered mentorship to emerging writers. She had seen the announcement weeks ago, only to dismiss it, believing herself unworthy of their attention. But now, in the aftermath of her cathartic writing session, the idea of stepping into that space felt less like a dream and more like a necessity. Could she have the audacity to apply? Her pulse raced at the thought. Each heartbeat was a reminder of her ambition, of the reluctant power she had just begun to embrace. The workshop could be her introduction to the world that terrified and thrilled her simultaneously. With shaky hands, she picked up the envelope, testing its weight like a lifeline. It felt alien, yet familiar. How could simply participating in a workshop yield any real change in her life? What if she was still the same timid girl buried beneath layers of anxiety and self-doubt? A voice inside urged her to consider the potential. This opportunity could lead to exposure. To an audience, a reader, a critic. Every possibility stirring a cocktail of excitement and dread in her gut. But what if her truth resonated with others? What if she found her community, her voice strengthened among peers? Just then, her internal debate crackled anew. Whether to succumb to fear or seize the day was a decision more monumental than it seemed. She grabbed a pen and folded the envelope back into her lap. In the flickering light, she began crafting a response to the invitation. Her heart raced as she penned her answers to the application questions. What inspired her to write? What themes resonated within her narratives? For the first time, her palms burned with determination rather than trepidation. Each query steered her toward a deeper understanding of her creative essence. She wrote about the brightest and darkest moments, her battles with self-criticism, and the boldness she yearned to embrace. As fear began to dissipate, she gave herself permission to write openly, to share her journey. Not just a polished version, but the unvarnished, authentic reality of being lost and found in words. Once the content was complete, Lily hesitated, hovering over the submission button on her screen. The entirety of her vulnerability hinged on this moment, her insecurities standing guard like watchful sentinels. And while doubt whispered that she wasn't ready, a renewed sense of clarity echoed the opposite. Taking a deep breath, she hit send, and a weight lifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. She found herself pacing as excitement melded with uncertainty. Had she just taken the leap she had craved? The subsequent days churned with an electric energy, marked by a simmering anticipation. She noticed a change within, an evolution occurring not just in her writing, but in her very vision of what success meant. She began to understand that a writer's worth could not be measured by others' praise or rejection. It derived from the willingness to put pen to paper and create something honest. However, with this newfound clarity came a sharp paradox. As anticipation grew, so did her fear. The prospect of sharing her work loomed large. What if the feedback was destructive? What if vulnerability shattered her already fragile sense of self? She felt an erratic pulse of both hope and dread. In her next writing session, Lily drafted an encouragement letter to her future self. "You are enough," she wrote. "Your journey matters, and each word is a step towards liberation." Her pen danced fluidly across the page, yet a gnawing fear interrupted the flow, a specter of self-doubt willing to derail her progress. What if she had just plunged into a world that would only expose her flaws? What would it mean if she got sidelined by critiques she didn't yet know how to navigate? Each question compounded her internal struggle. She didn't merely seek approval, she craved authenticity, the raw connection to her readers that could only arise from true expression. Yet, this very connection felt burdensome. What if her stories hurt more than they healed? As she looked over her letter, realization washed over her. Resilience, though exhausting, was an essential ingredient for growth. She was embarking on a journey not just for her words but also for her evolving identity as a writer. But with clarity came another unsettling question. Would she allow herself to be brave enough to confront not only the professional critiques, but also the deeply personal ramifications of her work on herself and those she loved? Unsure of what lay ahead, Lily closed her notebook with a mixture of dread and resolve. She had crossed the threshold of reluctance. Now it remained to be seen whether she would press on into the uncertain expanse of her own narrative. Just when she believed she could forge ahead, an unexpected email notification interrupted her thoughts. It was from the publishing house. The workshop was nearly full, but they wanted to schedule a quick interview. Heart pounding, she sat straighter, a single question reverberating through her mind. Was she truly ready for the next step, or was this merely the beginning of unraveling an even deeper journey of self-discovery? Lily stared at her computer screen, the email from the publishing house flashing like a beacon in a darkened room. The words "quick interview" danced before her eyes, igniting the pulse of anxiety that had been her constant companion for so long. Nerves fluttered around her stomach as she grappled with the reality of this unexpected opportunity and what it meant for her burgeoning identity as a writer. Taking a deep breath, she pushed herself away from the desk, the wooden chair creaking beneath her weight. Maybe the next right step was to prepare. An interview was not just a test of her writing, but a personal showcase. It was an invitation to step into the spotlight and offer up her unvarnished self, which felt daunting. She walked toward the window, pulling the curtain back to let sunlight flood into her dimly lit space. Illumination, a metaphor for the path ahead, and yet shadows danced along the edges of her mind. She'd imagined the interview 1,000 times, each scenario wrought with the agony of failure. What if they asked her hard questions she couldn't answer? Could she articulate her creative vision without stumbling over her words? Lily paced between invigorating visions of success and haunting images of inadequacy. In her unguarded moments, self-doubt clung to her like an unwelcome festoon, but as she turned to face herself in the window's reflection, a flicker of resolve sparked deep within. This was her chance to articulate her truth, to transform the private, messy thoughts that swirled inside her into a coherent narrative. The invitation to the workshop had been the first step into the light. Now she had to follow it, however daunting. She returned to her desk, where a notebook lay open. The page was filled with half-formed ideas and scratched-out lines. It was a brave space of potential and promise. Inspired, she grabbed her pen again and began to jot down key points, intending to construct a narrative she could weave together in her interview. Who was she as a writer? What stories begged to be told? Lily discerned that her own journey was riddled with complexities, a tapestry of both heartache and healing that could resonate with others. She wrote about the green hills of her childhood, the fears that had overshadowed her dreams, and the triumphs slowly stitched together from her pain. Each recollection empowered her, giving her the courage to forge forward. As she filled pages with thoughts, the mounting anticipation transformed from a tight knot of fear into a simmering excitement. This process was her rehearsal, a way to ground herself in her authentic voice. With each stroke of the pen, she affirmed her right to belong in the literary community, to be heard and seen. But then doubt began to claw at her again. That familiar whisper returned, suggesting the interview might rip away her carefully constructed facade. What if they saw through her bravado? What if her vulnerability was met with indifference? The thought chilled her and she paused, breathing deeply. Perhaps that was precisely the point of her writing, the unfiltered connection that lived in her honesty. Even as fear bristled within, she understood that courage didn't mean the absence of anxiety. It meant embracing it, using it as fuel. She scribbled another note to herself. Your voice is powerful. Allow it to flourish, even in discomfort. This was more than just an interview. It was a step toward reclaiming agency over her narrative. In the hours leading up to the interview, she prepared and revised what she felt could be her most honest portrayal yet. Outwardly, she wore her clothes slightly askew, but inside, her spirit donned vibrant armor, a metaphorical suit of confidence forged from the commitments she had made to herself. As the clock neared the appointed hour, Lily clutched her notebook, feeling the weight of its pages like a talisman of fortitude. Just as she was about to dial the number for the interview, another email notification pinged. The subject line sent a jolt through her. Feedback on her workshop application had arrived. Heart racing anew, she hesitated. Was it possible this could change everything? No longer could she postpone the inevitable. With trembling fingers, she clicked on the message. What would it reveal about her journey, her craft, her identity as a writer? The screen flickered, and an array of thoughts rushed her mind. Was this validation or rejection waiting to mold her next steps? With every heartbeat echoing the call of curiosity and dread, she braced herself for whatever would come next, teetering on the edge of self-discovery, prepared for the unexpected. Lily's heart thudded as she opened the email. The words seemed to blur together, swirling into an incomprehensible mass before her eyes. She fought to focus, her breath hitching as she parsed the messages line by line. Acceptance, rejection, a personalized response. Suddenly the implications of it struck her. This was not mere feedback. It represented an intersection between her past efforts and her envisioned future. She read again. It was an acceptance, a soft but encouraging acknowledgement of her unique voice, and they wanted to feature her work. Shock waves of recognition rolled through her. Here was validation she had long sought, yet the weight of expectation sat heavily on her shoulders. This was a door opened, but what lay beyond was still dark and formless. The time for her interview was nearly upon her, and she could sense the gravity of the moment crush down. Would her responses now carry the weight of this newfound validation? Or would she crumble, proving that perhaps this opportunity was a fluke? She fought against the rising tide of disbelief, forcing herself to breathe steadily, grasping at the buoyancy of hope. Gathering her scribbled notes, she hurried to her living room, pacing in rhythm to the dwindling minutes. Each footfall resonated with fragile determination. Her first instinct was to ease the tension by rehearsing her intended answers, but the words stumbled upon one another, slipping through the cracks of her self-assurance. Instead, she anchored herself in the profound weight of her stories, the childhood fears, the hard-earned victories, the struggles she had faced alone. They formed an armor of authenticity around her. They were her foundation. She questioned herself with unyielding clarity. How would she articulate not just facts, but the very essence of her experiences? Just before the call connected, she steadied her mind with a mantra of resolve. Speak from your heart. Be transparent. She felt the armored warmth of her belief enveloping her, and took one last deep breath. The phone rang, a sharp sound fortifying her resolve. As the interviewer's voice flowed through the line, welcoming and enthusiastic, a sense of grounding rushed over her. She recalled her earlier days, where every sentence written felt like both a victory and an avalanche. The contrast from isolation to connection pushed her forward into this conversation, building a bridge through which her true self could emerge. They talked, and Lily opened up, navigating questions that flowed much like the stories she wrote, with honesty, passion, and an emerging confidence that surprised even her. Each anecdote she shared felt like peeling back layers of herself. The interview transformed from an intimidating assessment into a mean of self-exploration. She felt seen, not merely evaluated, but cherished for the vivid complexities she conveyed. As they approached the final questions, Lily sensed the natural rise of an uneasy truth bubbling to the surface. A deep-rooted fear crept in, urging her to shut down, to protect that vulnerable part of her that had long been silenced. Yet something shifted within, a resolve took hold, igniting an instinct to be fully present. This moment represented not just a career opportunity, but a liberation from the self-imposed chains of inadequacy. I wrote because I had to, she finally confessed, her voice steady. It has always been what I needed to process my thoughts and feelings. In providing her truth, she felt weightless. The fears that had once dictated her life now seemed dwarfed by the power of authentic expression. As the call ended with appreciative words from the interviewer, an electrifying mix of exhaustion and exhilaration washed over her. She had faced an invisible opponent and emerged baffled, yet victorious. In that moment of singular clarity, she realized there was much more to this journey than she had initially anticipated. With the interview behind her, however, doubt began its intrusive crawl back. whispering that this was merely a beginning, and her greatest challenges were yet to unfold. What if this was a fleeting success? What if it all unraveled? As the sun set beyond the horizon, casting a warm glow through her window, Lily pondered her next move. There was no retreating now. Could she truly rise to the expectations she willed into existence? She also wrestled with the idea of what lay ahead. The fear of being discovered unraveling, the drive to create something profound, and an inkling that this newfound recognition might unleash a wave of scrutiny she was not ready to face. What awaited her in the next chapter of her self-discovery? Dinner with an old friend, where laughter echoed but buried truths lay in wait. Or perhaps a sudden realization that her craft demanded more than she had ever imagined. There was only one way to find out, and it beckoned like a siren in the dark. Lily adjusted the collar of her shirt, feeling the fabric constrict slightly as she exited her apartment. The evening air was a curious mix of cool breezes and fading sunlight. Her heart raced with anticipation and unease as she made her way to the local restaurant where she'd arranged to meet her old friend Sarah. Once brimming with shared dreams and laughter, their connection had waned over the years, marred by the relentless pull of time and life's unpredictable curveballs. Suddenly, that distance felt like a chasm between them, especially now that her own life seemed poised on the precipice of transformation. As she arrived, the familiar sounds of clinking dishes and soft conversations welcomed her. It was a context rich with backstories and intertwined paths, places filled with memories both bright and heavy. She spotted Sarah in a corner booth, her face animated as she recounted a story to a cohort at the table, laughter spilling like sunlight into the dim space. "Lily," Sarah called out, her eyes lighting up with recognition. "You made it." After hugs and pleasantries, they settled into the subtle ebb and flow of conversation. It felt effortless at first. They exchanged surface-level updates, new projects, family snippets, and vignettes of their busy lives. Yet beneath this facade simmered an undercurrent of unsaid truths, cloaked in shared history. Just as her drift into nostalgia felt comfortable, Sarah's gaze fixed on her. "You seem different," she remarked, and the gravity of her words hit Lily like a punch. Was she that transparent? Or was it that Sarah was adept at peeling back layers others overlooked? "That's one way to put it," Lily replied, gripping her glass of water, feeling the coolness seep into her skin. What would it mean to reveal the intricacies of her journey? Just then, a familiar vulnerability clawed at her throat, a reminder of how often she had hidden behind fabricated personas. They soon found themselves discussing vulnerability and storytelling, the burdens of sharing a truth unpolished. The discussion shifted to what it meant to be found out. Sarah shared her own anxieties about professional setbacks, the ever-looming fear of inadequacy, and the pressure to uphold an image for colleagues and friends. The words slid through the air like confessions woven between them. Lily listened, recognizing her friend's struggle as a mirrored reflection of her own. "What if authenticity is our greatest strength?" she offered, her voice heavy with newfound conviction. "What if we allowed ourselves to be more than just successes, more than what others expect us to be?" Silence enveloped the table, a weighty pause laced with consideration. Lily felt the moment stretch, the question posing a challenge, one that pressed for consequences far beyond rapport. Had her self-acceptance begun to influence others around her, beckoning them into a space of honesty? Sarah finally spoke, her voice soft but lit with clarity. "You're right, but it's terrifying. Everything we fear can hinge on the truth we decide to share." The admission struck a chord in Lily. Wasn't that precisely why she hesitated to embrace her recognition? She'd fought in shadows to deserve her place, but the prospect of failure loomed large, casting doubts deeper. How could she transform from newfound hope into a credible reputation? Feeling energized, she shared fragments of her own fears, sparking a wave of discussion about courage and creative coalescence. As the night deepened, a sense of kinship unfolded that neither had anticipated, but it halved the burdens they carried. Yet, as they said their goodbyes and waved under the pastel hues of streetlights, Lily was haunted by unanswered questions. Would she have the audacity to live her truth fully, allowing vulnerability into her workspace. Perhaps this moment of reconnection with Sarah was an awakening she had not anticipated. There were unfinished conversations within herself, beckoning recognition. All at once, she felt the complexities spiral. What new hurdles awaited her in her pursuit of authenticity? And would she dare to face them head-on? With her heart racing at the thought of new possibilities, she stepped into the night, doubt lingering at her heels. Her next chapter had a pulse of its own, and the stakes felt higher than ever as she confronted the deeper layers of her identity and craft. What awaited her next? The shell of comfort that her past self offered, or an unapologetic plunge into the truths that could redefine not just her work, but her very existence? The answer lingered in the air like a whisper, a challenge that rang out into the dark. Weeks passed, each bringing Lily closer to the opportunity she had feared yet craved. The workshop loomed ahead, and with each heartbeat, anticipation and anxiety danced within her. She pored over her notes, refining her vision and honing her voice, each revision crafting her narrative into a tapestry of purpose. The evening of the workshop arrived, vibrant with a sense of sacred possibility. The venue buzzed with anticipation, writers of all stripes mingling, each carrying their stories like precious cargo. Lily stepped inside, the warmth of the environment enveloping her like a comforting embrace. She took a deep breath, feeling the decades of doubt skimming the edges of her newfound confidence. As she listened to the introductions, she watched her fellow attendees light up when they spoke about their journeys, the struggles they faced, the dreams they chased. Lily recognized pieces of herself in each story, an intricate network of shared experiences. The weight of isolation that had once marked her had begun to lift, replaced by kinship and understanding. It was during one of the first exercises that everything changed. With pens and paper in hand, they were asked to write about their fears, not just experiences, but the emotions that wound through them like tangled vines. Fear of rejection, inadequacy, and the haunting thought that their voices might go unheard filled the room as they shared openly. Raw honesty coursing through the air. When her turn arrived, Lily felt a wave of vulnerability crash over her, but instead of retreating, she leaned into it. "Writing is more than a craft for me, it's a lifeline," she began, her voice steady yet rich with emotion. "I've spent so long fighting the doubts that paralyzed me. My fears felt like chains anchoring me to a past that threatened to swallow my ambition." As she spoke, each word became a building block towards empowerment, aimed not just at herself, but also for those listening. The room held still, her narrative weaving through each heart, igniting a profound realization that they each shared the burden of words unsaid, dreams unclaimed. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. They were no longer just amateurs. They were all warriors in a sense, fighting their own battles. When she finished, a transformative silence fell over the group, broken only by soft applause and the glimmer of recognition reflected in their eyes. In that moment, she understood. She was not alone. It felt as though the barriers constructed from years of self-doubt had fallen away, revealing a new pathway of solidarity forged in authenticity. The workshop progressed, and as Lily engaged with fellow writers, she witnessed her evolution, her once tentative voice finding solidity and grace. The tools she learned weren't merely technical. They were mechanisms of empowerment, nurturing not just her writing, but her identity. That confidence crystallized during a final exercise when they explored the concept of taking risks in their writing. Each participant selected a story to work on, something that terrified them, yet called out for exploration. Feeling the pulse of ambition rise within her, Lily chose to draft a narrative about her grandfather's legacy, inherent bravery, and her own emerging voice. With each word she penned, she unearthed memories long held in her heart, connecting her family's past to her present aspirations. The act of writing became a cathartic release, reminding her of the anchor she had found in connection, both to her heritage and to her newfound community. As the workshop concluded, she felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment wash over her. She not only faced her fears, but unraveled the deeply rooted belief that her story was worth sharing. More importantly, she recognized that vulnerability held power. An authentic voice resonated more deeply than any polished facade could. In the weeks following, Lily submitted her completed pieces to several publications, each submission a defiance against the notion that silence was safer. She cherished the thrill of risking exposure, transforming the trepidation once synonymous with her name into an exhilarating call to reclamation. It culminated at a local literary event where Lily was invited to read from her work. Standing before an audience, heart racing with a mixture of excitement and nerves, she felt utterly transformed. The welcoming energy from the crowd felt like a warm embrace, grounding her as she stepped into her truth on stage. As she read the words about her grandfather's bravery, her triumphs and choices she had faced, she witnessed the reactions, inspired nods, emotional reflections, all affirming what she had long sought: connection and recognition through storytelling. In that moment, a sense of profound fulfillment ignited within her, a recognition not only of her newfound competence, but an established position within the narrative she wished to craft. A true transformation had occurred. Lily left the stage amid applause, a wave of gratitude washing over her. She had faced the darkness of her fears, exposing her truth to the world without reservation. A solid confidence and proud resolve settled in her chest. She had claimed her voice, and in doing so had become a walking testament to the resilience that lies within. Now, as she continued on this journey, every story she penned felt like a victory, a continuation of growth grounded in honesty. What lay ahead was uncertain, but she welcomed it with open arms, ready to wield the power of her words. If your heart resonates with Lily's incredible transformation, and you find inspiration in overcoming personal obstacles, you need to subscribe now to witness more exclusive emotional journeys. Don't forget to leave a like to keep these stories alive and reach others who may need this encouragement. Comment below with your reactions and theories on the impact of Lily's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful personal storytelling can be. Let's uplift each other through shared narratives.